Okay, so my name's Sophie, and my specialism is about sound. So with this module, it helped me discover things that I didn't know before. So there was DPA mics that I didn't know about properly, so I got to research into them further, learning about how different sound mixers and engineers use them during different productions. So there's one sound engineer who I got told to research about, which that Damien told me to. He's called Simon Hayes. He's been in the industry for like 20 years plus, and he has been on so many different film productions doing sound, and he uses the DPA mics as well. So I read through an article that he did about them, and what I learned from that was the different things that could go wrong and how you can get around those problems. So one of the ones that he was talking about was in a scene in Les Mis where one of the characters has to sing in the rain. So with that, obviously you get lots and lots of different problems. You've got rain, which if it goes into the mics it can destroy them, which will not be good because they are very expensive. You have the sound of the rain falling down on all of the different surfaces that were around. So there was roofs, there was cobbled floor, and obviously singing as well. So and they didn't want to retake the take because it was such an emotional song, so they had to try and get it that one time. So the way that they got around that was with the DPA mics, they put two sets on them, and so they had two mics in the same place, because if a raindrop got into one of them, then they had the backup there and they didn't have to stop the take because the sound sounded horrible. So it allowed her to get through that song without obviously any sound difficulties, which was great because obviously it sounded fabulous. So yeah, also with the whole rain onto the different surfaces, they spoke to the special effects people because where they had rigged it, it was in a stage setting, so it was like made to make rain. So they spoke to the special effects people, and they also had to coordinate it all with the DOP as well to see how it looked on camera. So when they were talking to the special effects people to make the rain lighter so it wasn't too noisy on the surfaces, but also they had to talk to the DOP to see if it looked okay on camera, because if it was too fine it would just look blurry and it wouldn't look like rain, and it just ruin obviously that kind of shot. So when the DOP was happy with it, to the point where it was almost not seeable but you could still see it, then Simon was happy because it was fine enough that you could just about hear it and you'd get that sound effect as well. So that was another thing. So obviously little, not as big drops as well, so a little bit better for the sound because it is horrible. The other thing that he was talking about that I would never have thought of in a rain situation is that they had the first boom operator having the boom obviously in front of her to give the post design people another track that they could use if the mics were ruined. They had the second boom then directly above where the boom was, but they had a cover basically. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was just a cover big enough to go over the boom to cover that from getting rain on it, so the boom wouldn't get wet, not destroyed, still great sound. So that's something that I would never have thought of that I can now use in the industry. and in projects that I do where I am the sound mixer or the boom, because it would be very, very helpful to help get the best sound possible and not do as many retakes because the mics have got ruined. So I feel like that has helped me quite a bit. So yeah. What else? Okay. Having my mentor Damien there has been very helpful, as he is still in the industry, he's still going out and doing jobs. So for him to be able to come back, do lessons with me, teach me certain things that I haven't, like I just don't know, asking him to help me on my CV, getting me certain contacts to try and get into the industry because that's where I want to go. Having him there to help me with that process has been very, very helpful. And then just teaching me things from the beginning of uni. Because when I came here, I just didn't really know anything about sound, and I got into it through him. So I'm very grateful that he has been there for me. Hopefully he'll be there for however many years. So yeah, it's great for me to have him, and then for me to pass it down to my mentee as well. Just teaching them about the things that Damien's taught me. So about learning about the polar patterns, different mics that are best to use in and outdoors, because that'll help them in future shoots when they are going to be doing booming or mixing themselves. So to have that, and then for me to be able to pass it on, is really good. And it has come in handy for me as well, because I was at a family barbecue, typical, where they had a musician come in, had a mixer, but he didn't know how to use it. So it was a good job I was there, because I was able to give him a lesson, let's say, on what gain and volume is, because he said that previously on a couple of jobs that he had done with it, because he's only had it for a little while, that he was turning the gain up instead of the volume. So when he was saying that it sounded horrible, so I had to go through the whole thing with him. So the difference between gain and volume is that you have the volume kind of in the middle, so it's not too loud but not too quiet, so in the middle on a mixer normally, and then you'd have the mic wherever you'd have it placed. So if it was on a body, you'd have it roughly there, or like wherever, like the boom as well, so you'd have to set the gain for the boom. So I showed him wherever you'd have the mic normally, however loud they're going to be talking or quiet, you'd normally get someone to say their lines or obviously do like part of their performance before they went and did their performance, because obviously if it's recording and it just sounds horrible, then it's down to you. Like, it's your fault because you did not set the gain, you didn't do it properly. So you set the gain to how it sounds for you. Normally you'd have it peaking at 0 dB, because that's where you normally set the tone to. So you'd do that, you'd set the gain, and then normally with a mixer you fade it in and out, because you have separate tracks to do mixing on that give the post sound people something to work with, because then you have the ISO tracks as well. So on the mixer you'll have 2 tracks that are mixing between like the booms and the mics that you use. Then underneath you have isolation tracks, so all of the different tracks that you have got, so the booms and the mics that are on people, you are recording separately, so the post sound people can take them. Obviously if the mix doesn't sound great, you can take them and put that in as well. So having the gain there as well, that sets the level for them, and you just don't really touch it. It's just the volume that you use to fade them in and out for the mix. So if the gain isn't set right, then the isolation tracks don't sound good. So then the post-sound people are going to be stuck with what they have been given for you. So if you've done it all correctly, then everything should work fine. So I was just trying to explain all of that to him. But obviously it's a little bit different because he does music. But after that, he did understand it a little bit better. So now when he goes and does his performances, he can do that, and then it'll sound a little bit better, and it's not going to distort or anything because he's moving the gain instead of the volume. So I was quite happy with that because I've learnt all of that off Damien and all the research that I've done over the past year as well. So yeah, it's all very good. And then obviously it's going to help me go into the industry as well because I've known this, and for me to be able to go and teach someone who isn't my mentee or a student at university, it's someone outside in the industry, it made me a lot more confident and in myself and what I've learned, so I can go out and do it. So yeah, hopefully that's taught something, shown that I've learned something as well, and then hopefully I can just continue doing that in the years to come. So